Hey guys, let's do a tier list. Um, so we're going to do a little tier list of the creatures and heroes of the Dungeon Keeper game. This will be for as it is in Keeper FX. Right now we're on like version 0.4.8 as a release, but I mean, to be honest, it's about the same as as it was in the original game. There's not been much changes. Um, right. What are we thinking then? So, I'd say all the creatures are situationally useful. So, really, it's a matter of in how many situations they can be used. We're going to be thinking about how they are level 1, going up to level 10, and how good they are overall. And basically, what do we want to throw back in the portal? What do we want to try and focus on getting in order to make sure that we win our games? Alright, so the first guy we got here is our thief. So thieves aren't really useful. Their whole shtick is that they can be invisible, but when we use them, they'll like attack creatures when they see them, so that kind of ruins their invisibility. Can be decent in possession, but what are we really going to do with a invisible creature that we can't just use the spell for? Their only redeeming quality is that they can turn into a knight once they're level 11, as in once they've leveled up past level 10. And knights are much better than thieves. Question is that redeemable enough for it to be elevated from a D, if they couldn't do that, to a C? We'll leave them at C tier for a little bit. We'll see how we feel. Next is the Barbarian. So these guys are a lot more tougher. They're just like a melee, I wouldn't say a powerhouse, just a very solid kind of melee focused hero. Training costs is quite high, like 40 a pop, but they do level up quite fast. And their armor spell makes them actually pretty useful, that they get later on. So I'll probably put them at a B tier, just kind of middle of the road. If we're up against the whole army of barbarians, it's not the most terrifying thing that you'll see. Oh, knight this guy. I mean, Avatar is clearly an S. Just from the sheer kind of power that he's got, massive health, massive damage, immune to boulder, immune to chicken, spells barely hurt him. The best thing to do if you're up against more than one, which doesn't happen in the original campaign because that would be really difficult, the best thing to do would be to try and separate the group of them by doors, or trying to lure some away with your own creatures. So S tier. The only disadvantage would be pay, but you can hand pay them. They cost almost about 5,000 per payday at level 10. But if you hand pay them, it kind of gets rid of that. They do also get a bit angry when you snap them. But not as. But the anger is alright. They can still use the temple fine. Beetles, I'd say they're D tier. They do get a freeze ability at level 7. That's the only redeemable quality, I would say. But getting there in the first place is just such a pain. Like, the training speed is so low. Even though they're very cheap to maintain, it's just not worth keeping them. Throw them away. Actually, speaking of like when I throw away creatures or not, thieves, like if you get them, it's probably a decision that you need to make. That it's going to take, if you just leave them and you don't micromanage them, it's probably going to take more than 40 minutes to actually train them up into knights. So the question is, are you going to have enough time to actually train them to knights? And that can be tricky to figure out. Bile Demon. The advantage of the Bile Demon is that you can get them, if they're available in the portal, you can get them right away on almost all maps. Because the requirements to get these are 25 tiles a layer and 25 tiles a hatchery, which you almost always start with, and they are very strong early on compared to other creatures. Because they get Poison Gas at level 2 and Fart at level 4, I'm going to say. It's either 4 or 3, I can't quite remember. So that is very good. They are also involved with the sacrifice recipe to get the Horn Deeper. Question is, do I keep them at S tier or A tier? I would say the S tier, actually. Reason is that you can get so many of them, and maybe high A, low S kind of tier. The thing is that they can research, but they're really bad at it, and the training speed is pretty low. The Avatar, speaking of that, his training speed is one of the highest. He can research really well, and he can manufacture. Not so great, but still, he can do all of it. So yeah, I'll actually leave that. That's quite nice and symmetrical. Even though I'm not gonna try and make it symmetrical, but the demon spawn. So these guys are only really useful early on in the game, or if you are really limited by creatures. I would throw them away, not bother with them. They are a bit better than the Beetle, but not by much. So probably low C. Low C for the demon spawn. The redeemable quality to them is that they level up to a dragon. But, dragons, speaking of that, I don't really like them that much. For example, the Bile Demon that's always nice to have more of them, but the dragons, they kind of max out at a certain point. So it's good to have a few of them, but I tend to find that having your entire army of dragons isn't great. Reason is that they're pretty slow to kill things with, and they can get kited around a lot. In possession mode, they are amazing, however, because the flame breath is really good in possession. So they are really good at research, and they can workshop, so that is really nice to get them early on. And they're pretty good at training as well, so actually training them a bit and putting on the research really speeds that up. And also, like, having that to get these guys, you need a layer and a treasury, so actually you can get them pretty quick, and so you can research things faster. So I'll put them middle of the roads. Reason is the kind of combats I don't really like that much with them. Maybe they're probably a high B, maybe A tier. Next is the Dwarf. Yeah, these guys they're pretty good at high levels actually. They get the rebound spell and armor, so that makes them really effective against both melee creatures and also spellcasters. So actually in combat at high levels, when they get those spells, they're pretty good in numbers, and their manufacture is really nice as well. but it does take a while to train them up. So I tend to keep them around. I do like having them. So I'd say maybe B or C tier for them. I'll put them in B for now. Fairies. Fairies are amazing at level 10 when they get all the spells, but they just really suck until then, and they're really slow to train. I like kind of keeping them for some reason. I guess it's better to have them because like they're heroes. You don't tend to get them like through the portal unless the level script allows it. But if you can convert them at high level, definitely keep them if you can. They have really low health though, so be careful in the torturing with them. And yeah, their low health is a drawback. However, usually they can just melt creatures before they die if you have enough of them. So I'll put them here. The fly is probably, as much as I would like this guy to be better, I mean it's probably the worst. Actually, not quite the worst, I think, but yeah, one of the worst creatures in the game. I mean, their advantage, their shtick, is that they can travel really fast, and they can fly, so they can move over lava. On certain levels, you can also use them in possession mode to go up high, so you can travel up above a guard post or a temple, which is adjacent to water or lava. And you can also use them to fly over boulders. But I mean, that's only redeemable quality. I mean, the fairy can do all that, and she's much better. They don't get any useful spells as well, and they're just incredibly weak. The ghost has its purposes. So what can it do? The ghost can turn invisible, which is good in possession mode. It can, the ghost I think is better than the thief when it comes to being invisible, because you can use them to travel around a bit more effectively. They can fly over obstacles. It has a rebound at a higher level. I can go through locked doors. This is keep it FX, which can be very useful. In fact, the only creature that can. You can amass a massive army of ghosts if you have lots of prisoners, and there's nothing better to do with them. For example, you can just, if you have a prisoner in a torture room, you can, if you don't like anything, you can at least torch him to a ghost. I certainly wouldn't keep them if you're below the portal limit, as in the number of creatures you can get per level, but I think they're not bad. I'll put them above the thief, because they can research pretty well, and they can manufacture as well if you have like enough of them. It's there. They're mostly utility rather than like an army. Although if you level them up to level 10 and you have like 20 of them, they all get the drain ability, and they can take down some creatures. Although if you have 20 level 10 bile demons or dwarves, that may be much more effective, but it's something. Next is the giant. So they only get one spell, and that's speed at level 10, which is good, very good at max level. However, before that, they're incredibly slow, and they are joint bottom for the slowest minion. So they are very good on defense For example, if you have an army of them and you're getting attacked, let the enemy come towards you and they can clobber them, as they got really high strength. I always do wonder which is better, Barbarian or the Giant. I prefer Barbarians, if I'm honest, because they train faster. That's what you want to use these guys for, is train them up quick and go and attack something or go and defend. And the Barbarian does it better, I feel. Right, Hellhound. Hellhounds are situationally very good. What I mean by that is, well, what can they do? They're very fast, and they get the speed ability. They can flame breath like the dragons, so in possession mode they're really good. And one of their kind of quirks is that they can detect enemies behind walls. So they'll bark and woof if there's an enemy behind a wall. They decompose bodies faster, which isn't that great, or not good at all, really. But if the enemy has hellhounds, they can be really annoying, because if it's a keeper, their default job is to go and seek out the enemy, and that would be you. And if they're high level, they can be very annoying and very deadly. But they are quite weak. They don't have much health or defense. But I would probably keep one if it's just like a generic level. Keep one, train him up. You can maybe scout around, put him in the workshop, library. He does whatever. The Hornreaper. So this guy is basically the Avatar equivalent, I guess, on the keeper side. He's got incredibly high strength, a lot of health. He has the speed ability, the slow spell. He can walk on lava, and he is also another fast boy. However, the drawback to him is that he's very expensive to maintain. Actually, I'm not sure I mentioned, but the Avatar's training cost is quite high, but his training skill is really high. So he spends a lot less time in training room than the Hornreaper does. This guy takes 150 a pop in the training room, and he's got a pretty slow skill, so it takes a while for him to train up. And also, it's quite infamous for, if he gets angry, he will start killing your minions, and there's no way to help him with that. He goes berserk, and he can't calm down, no matter if you give him money or put him in the temple. So that's quite a big drawback. And the other drawback as well is that because he has a massive health pool, he has to recover his health, and he doesn't have a heal spell. He needs to recover in the lair, and sleeping makes him angry. So I would say he's still S tier, just because of the damage that he can pump out. Not quite as good as the Avatar, but really good. So the Imp is the special case, as I'm sure you're aware. They are the only creature that can be bought with gold, and they can actually kill things. Not very much though, and they can only fight automatically around the heart. It's kind of a last ditch attempt, but because of their uniqueness, it's kind of have to put them up at S tier, as they're the only guys that can actually dig and get things done. It's kind of a cop-out putting them there, but hey-ho. They're your utility minion. They're the only guys you have. So I'll put them there. The knight. The knight is kind of like the dragon equivalent. It's just basically a big beefy wall, except unlike the dragon, the knight is actually a lot more scary in a 1v1 situation. He can take down most creatures by himself. At level 10, he has the heal spell and rebound. And that makes him pretty tough, especially for certain spellcasters. And also the heal makes him so you can't exactly whittle him down. You need to just go at him. He can take down a lot of creatures with a few hits, and so he's very good. Except that he is quite expensive to keep, but his training skill is quite good. He can level up quickly. He can research and workshop, which is also really nice. It's not very often you get them though, and it tends to be that if you can kill a knight, imprison and torture him, then you've pretty much won already. So he doesn't really help you win more, I would say. The Mistress, so they are probably one of the better. Well, they're very good. we'll say. So what they can do is that they're a ranged creature, and they can get the lightning spell, drain, and speed. So they're able to attack from afar very quick, and there's not much that can actually catch up to them. So if you're trying to like use any melee creature, they can have a hard time getting to her. They can tear apart all the spellcasters, because lightning and drain don't go through rebound. They go through rebound. Sorry. So they're very good. However, the drawback is that only starts to happen at level 6 or above. So it does take a bit of time to get there, and also getting in torture room to get her in the first place does require a bit of research. So you need to like throw things back in the portal if you're at the portal cap to actually start getting mistresses. I would say that if I was able to start a map with the torture room and with the hatching lair, like the bell demon, I would want more mistresses rather than bell demons. So I'll put them at S tier. Again, they're kind of like low S, high A, I would say. So the monk is kind of an odd kind of creature. Is that he's kind of like an avatar in that he's kind of like I would say an avatar through like abilities, like rather than strength, because he has a few spells, but he's mainly like melee focused with like supporting spells. I'd say the supporting spells are pretty good, like especially the slow helps him out and the heal. But beyond that, I'm not a big fan of them. They're kind of middle of the road. I would probably take them above the fairy. I'd probably put them between like the fairy and the dwarf. Reason is, it's just because like the different kind of spells he's got. He's alright at fighting. In high numbers, they're good, but so is everything really. He's also good at research, quite decent at manufacturing as well. So yeah, I would keep them around, train them up a bit. The orc, he's he's pretty good. he gets speed and armor and also grenade, but yeah, that's when it comes to like melee. I would say he's better than almost all the other kind of melee group. Not quite as good as a knight. He's just like a pretty good all rounder. With the speed spell, he gets really good at manufacturing as well. You don't need to like micromanage and speed them up. So yeah, I would say get them if you can. The downside to them is that they don't have much health or defense, so they do get battered pretty easily if you put them in against a large group of heroes and you're not careful with them. But yeah, I would say keep them. The samurai, I'd say he's the best hero you can get outside the avatar. So I think he goes right there. Yeah, if you can get them, definitely keep them. What's the advantages? So, like the kind of spells they get freeze, speed, and lightning are the main ones. The freeze spell is very good. For example, although they're melee, they can easily catch the Mistress out with the freeze, and when she outranges him, he starts lightning spell, and he can destroy her quite easily. They're very good at training as well, although it is quite expensive. He's got a really high training skill and the speed spell automatically, so he'll train really fast. And yeah, in a large group, they're absolutely brutal. Quite similar, in quite a similar way, when you get a melee minion with the lightning spell, the skeletons also get lightning. However, that's at level 10. So that's the only time that are actually quite useful, is when they get lightning. However, they are more useful than the ghosts when it comes to like, undead creatures. They can train really fast, and they're cheap. So they're cheap to like train and pay. If that's your only option, if you have like a prison with no torture room, definitely keep all your skeletons, train them up as much as you can. I would say they're pretty useful. Put them there. The spider, I quite like. He gets two important spells, which is the slow and freeze spell. So it's just like the kind of crowd control by him makes him really good. Although his kind of combat stats is pretty rubbish. So yeah, just like having like a few spiders. You are able to like chain freeze creatures. For example, if you have 4 spiders and like you rotate them around, you can kill an avatar like that. But that takes quite a bit of micromanaging. In general, I would say that having a couple around, well, one or two, level them up. They get the spells pretty early. Those spells that are important, so they're nice to have quite like early on against any kind of aggression that you might get. And also, they're part of a few useful sacrifices. Actually, I did forget that with the beetle. The spider and the beetle sacrifice in the temple does get you the Mistress. So, if you do get them through the portal and you have access to the temple, it can be worth keeping these two around. Also, if you get 3 spiders, you can sacrifice them to get a bile demon, which can be worth it. So, the Tentacle. Tentacles only get 1 spell, freeze, at level 5. They're quite rare to get. Usually, they require 9 tiles of temple on a water map, normally. So that's quite late on in the tech tree. You might get them, as a neutral creature or as a convert. I don't really like them. I think they're kind of like the spider, in which their purpose is to like crowd control and freeze. But they're really slow to train to like actually get to that level 5 when you need them. Their advantage over the spider is that they got more health and they're a bit stronger. But I don't think it's worth keeping them. The archer is kind of odd. Like usually I would either turn them into skeletons or I'd keep them. It really does depend on like the map. They're very good at kind of kiting enemies if you're against a lot of like melee. If you notice, there's a lot of like barbarians, giants. They're pretty good. However, against say like knights and dwarves, they have rebound, and rebound obviously destroys archers, so they're not that useful against rebound creatures. They are good in the workshop though, because they do get access to speed, and the workshop ability is pretty good. So yeah, it does depend on the type of map, what kind of creatures you might expect, but generally I'll put them down here. So the troll, he has really rubbish combat ability. However, the advantage of having trolls is that they're the best workshop creature, and they can be used in the sacrifice recipe to get a Horn Reaper, which is Mistress, Bile Demon, and Troll. So that's their main purpose, is in the workshop and in the temple. Outside of that though, there's not really much else going on there. So I'm probably putting them down here. About there. The tunneler, it's just I'd say they're probably the equivalent to the fly. Even though I have the imp up here, they are the only other creature that can dig and claim land, as like the hero utility minion. But they're really bad. As in really bad. They're very slow. They get hungry and they need a lair. So by the time they actually walk somewhere to actually to do their imp kind of jobs, then they return that home to get food or to get paid. It's incredibly annoying to have these guys. So either turn them into a skeleton or a ghost, that'd be much better than a tunneler. Vampires. So these guys probably have the I'd say they're probably one of the more unique creatures in the game, because most of the time you can only get these guys by putting 10 corpses in the graveyard, and then you'll get a vampire at level 1. So to actually get them, they're pretty unique. They are very fast at training in the early levels, and then they're incredibly slow. So to get them up to level 4, that's when they start slowing down. Getting up to level 4, that might take about 5 minutes, but to actually train up to level 10, if you just leave them alone in the training room, that might take 50 minutes to an hour. So they've got an interesting kind of training curve. They're pretty expensive. They take 50 gold pop in the training room. Very good at researching. They don't manufacture. Very good at scavenging. We've not really touched upon scavenging, but I don't really use that much. It doesn't come into play that much, so I don't think it's really that useful. They can resurrect at one level lower. So for example, if you have a level 7 vampire, he dies in battle, he comes back at level 6 as long as he got all there. And they're really tough to kill because they're high health. They have really good spells as well. They are a ranged character, except they only get drained at level 6, which is their only, well, one of their ranged abilities. So at level 5 and below, they're melee. And their melee attack is really powerful. And at level 6 and above, because the drain, they can kite well because they're a slow ability, and the drain heals them up. There's so much going on with the vampire. I'm just going to put him in S tier. Warlock, he in Keeper FX, forgot to mention about sleeping experience. Warlocks level up if they are trained passively, if their lair is adjacent to a block of gold and they're asleep. Dragons level up if they're adjacent to lava. Tentacles level up if they're adjacent to water. In Keeper FX, those have been buffed quite significantly, so it is a worthwhile consideration. Warlocks' main weakness, shall we say, is that they rely on their main spells, being Fireball, Meteor, and Navigating Missile. What all those have in common is that against a rebound minion, they absolutely suck because it comes back and whacks them straight in the face because they don't have a rebound themselves. That's their main downside. They're good in the library, and they're really good early on. Like at level 4, that's when they get that's when they get Meteor, and they start really hurting in numbers. And you can train them up early, and you can get Warlocks early because you usually start with the library. So I actually like them because of that. Despite the disadvantage, I'm going to pop them probably just below a dragon. Witches are another spellcaster. So yeah, actually they're quite similar to the fairy, quite similar to the wizard. The main kind of characteristic they have is the wind spell. If they get hit by like poison gas, then they tend to use that immediately. And if minions get close to them, they might use it. They're decent. They don't really train that quickly though. They can research well, they can manufacture. It's kind of tough. Usually I don't really want witches because like the wind spell ruins the positioning of like my army. And that is a pretty big downside to them. So I'll probably put them probably about there. I don't tend to keep witches at all. Someone I do keep on the other hand though is a wizard. These guys are probably my favourite spellcaster because they're really good. They get some pretty important spells early on. For example, like the freeze and rebound ability at level 5, which makes them really good from that point onwards. And because they have like rebound, freeze, and powerful damaging spells, like the slow ability, I believe, it makes them really good against a variety of foes. Downside, like most spellcasters, is they don't have much health or defense. So if you're able to like get a Horndeeper on them, which isn't frozen or slowed, they'll die very quickly. But usually they keep them well, you probably won't keep a Hornleaper at bay or a Samurai for very long, but they're very good to have in an army. So I'll probably, yeah, probably there. Definitely above a Bile Demon. I'd probably take a Mistress over a Wizard. Would I? Maybe. Definitely high A, low S for a Wizard. Alright, let's have a look. Is there anything that I want to change? The Imp Froth. I've been kind of focusing on combat for this, so I'll put the Imp down there. So let's see. This seems to kind of be in order. There's kind of a lot here in the middle. I was thinking I'd probably move the skeleton up a bit because you can kind of get them, because you can get them pretty easily. And because of that, and the fact that they can train up so much. Dragon, yeah, I'll put him in A tier. Just because he's really good to have as part of an army. Alright, well, I think we'll leave it there for that tier list. So this is just my opinion, of course. You can let me know what you think. So I would probably say, as a rule, if you're interested, mostly throw C and D tier back in the portal if you get them. Obviously, you keep a troll if you wanted to make a Hornleaper. You'd keep a spider if you wanted more kind of crowd control, that type of thing. And of course, it also depends on what creatures you can actually have access to. So take this with a grain of salt, I would say. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.